Fern, it never gets lost on me that we have an intro.
That's well, A, I doubt that. B,
You doubt that
I'm
it
glad
gets
that
lost on me?
I doubt. Yeah, I think many things get lost in you, but I think uh oh yeah, there's just so many ways to take that. No, but I would hope not, being the amount of time and energy that the team puts into trying to make us look good, which is quite the heavy lift, I might add.
Yeah, look at me. I got wrinkles and everything. Why's my
Um,
face all red?
by the
Cody.
way, I cannot. I don't. I
This,
want. I
this
don't
is
want to like.
Cody.
I put. I legit need to give Nate like a legit shout out when he was here last week, and some of the stuff that we did on Thursday. I got to see Nate's pure artistic beast come out, and it was fucking awesome.
Dude, did he send you the clip? I don't know if that was private to me or not. He sent it to me like he probably sent it to all the entire team one at a time.
Well, he sent it to me like Saturday. He's like, I couldn't wait.
This is
Yeah,
how
I couldn't
you
wait.
know when a media person is excited because they edit it immediately.
Yeah.
Like typically
He almost started
days.
editing it like Thursday night. He's like, I should go to sleep because we didn't leave the gym until what's up, Trish? He didn't leave the gym till like
Hello.
I like this picture. I don't think we left the gym till 9:30 on Thursday night.
Well, we were on the call.
I don't want to tell. We're not going to tell people what it is, though.
Okay, won't give it away. But you and I were on a call 30 minutes ago, and in that time, he sent me the little sneak peek, and I was like, "This is some Scorsese shit." Like,
is this a new sneak peek or is this?
I don't know what you've seen. It was 42 seconds.
Oh. Ooh.
It was basically from what I gathered the beginning of the video.
Let's see. I don't know if that's the same one.
Let
me see. Yeah, if you did, I'm going to take back all the nice shit I just said.
Thank you. Who is Trish? How do we know Trish? How do you know Trish, Fern?
I don't.
Can you pull that up, Cody? What happened? Did you pull the?
We don't. Cody. We don't. Trish is an unfamiliar person, just out there on the
internet. What?
Nobody knows who.
Oh no! This is what he sent me on Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to say, like, Trish is leveled. She's above Kanan. She's well above Joby at this point, right? Like, you know Trish from your Navy days.
Oh, okay.
That's good and bad. We've heard some stories, Trish.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Trish. I hope you didn't work for me. No.
No, I mean, here's where I was going with it, Fern. This video is going to be impactful. Like, I think the community really responded well to all the stuff Cross is putting out there. Our mutual friend Katie was at the forefront of some of those videos recently, and this video is going to be shared around the CrossFit universe. I promise you that. But
let's not hype it up too much. But I think here's what I think it will do. I think it will resonate with people, which is all that I give a crap about. And I'm super excited about it. It was, I would tell you this, just watching, giving somebody an idea and then watch them try to make an idea like that come to life, I think is really cool to watch. So anyway, moving on. That's not the point of the show.
Well, I was saying about the intro, I was on Bill and Cariana's podcast. We recorded it at least Friday. You know, Bill and Kay.
I got a bone to pick with them that they were here and they didn't stop by.
They were in Virginia Beach?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is breaking news. Cody, play the breaking news sound. We don't have it.
Yeah, we don't have one. Yeah.
But anyway, they said, like, one of the questions they asked me was, are you where you thought you would be when you guys started this company? And I was like, hell no. We are so far beyond what we dreamed of creating. And, you know, they are old school CrossFitters and they get it, where I was just like, we just started doing this thing because it was fun and we were trying to give back to the community. Now we've got intros. Now we've got producers. It's pretty, it doesn't get lost on me.
Well, so this is actually a potentially a good segue if we do our jobs here into the show topic, but
Cody's losing his mind.
He's already sweating. I was on an Enlifted call and this might have been the graduation call. I don't remember, but they were talking about like, everybody's talking about like starting a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, hey, what do I do? And then like, you know, everybody's chiming in and they all had good stuff. And I was like, just record.
Just hit
Like,
record,
don't
baby.
overthink, like, what equipment do I need? I'm like, you don't need any equipment. You need earbuds and a laptop.
I don't even think we had
Like,
earbuds back in the day.
probably not.
We
You
just had
just
our
hit
laptop.
record, you hit record, and then you'll start to figure it out. And I think I think everybody gets too in the weeds on like starting things, like in the gym as well. Just like, well, what should I do? What should I do? I'm like, you should just start, and you should very much reevaluate and assess and try to improve things as you go through. But sometimes the most effective thing you can do is literally just start.
Do you think when people are doing that, it's more so like it's stopping them from actually doing it? Like they don't actually want to do it. It's easier to talk about doing it, and then it's like, well, I have to do these 10 other things, like you're saying, or you could just record. Well, I need earbuds, and I need this, I need that, or you could just. But it's their way of being like, you know what? I'm not gonna do it.
It's definitely for some people. I don't think you could say that as a blanket statement, but for some people, it's an avoidance tactic where like it's how fear manifests itself as over preparation in order to never actually start the thing. And as box owners, we have that like, hey, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And I'm like, oh, I'm busy. I got this other stuff to do. And I'm like, no, this is your way of avoiding to just getting the thing, whatever it is, rolled out, changing the prices, like giving your coaches evals, like whatever it might be, like all of that stuff. The fear is a real thing. But some of it is just start, obviously there's things that need to be planned a little bit more intelligently, and those need to happen in order to do it well. But
I have a plan.
Oh, nice.
So good. He's so good.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
is the same true with opening a box? Just affiliate your garage and start with one class a day. That's what Trish says. I don't think it's that wrong.
I mean, opening a box is a little bit different, but you could do that, Trish, like in the garage affiliate, like just start a class and then there's many gyms that started that way. And
best hour
just
CrossFit for one.
Yeah, it's still not off the ground. It's our one failure in all of affiliate
Thank
U.
you, Nick.
But,
let's talk
yeah.
about it. Let's segue, if you will. Do you know Segway is spelled Segue? Is that accurate? Can you look that up, Cody?
So it's not like the little scooter.
That's how I always spelled it. And just so you all know my age, I'm 44. I'm at the age where you have to put closed captioning on your TV. Do you do that, Fern?
You look significantly older.
Do you do the closed captioning?
No, but my daughter does, and it drives me batshit crazy.
I won't even watch something if it doesn't have closed captioning anymore.
I can't watch it. I can't read and watch at the same time. I'm too dumb.
That is hard for you. Some of us with above an 80 IQ can do that. But I was watching a show and they had Segway, and I was like, that's spelled. So I'm basically learning while I'm watching television.
Seguia. I got it. Okay.
French. All right. So we're going to talk about your front end offer, tips and tricks.
Correct.
So, full disclosure, you kind of run the Monday show, if you will, topics. And, when we talk business, you've really kind of pushed this. What was the reasoning that you thought it was necessary that we needed to chat about this?
How would I describe this? I don't want to say the pain points, right? Like one of the fundamental errors that I would, let's go high 90s, right? Let me answer a question with a question. How about that?
Please do.
Okay. How do most gyms come up with their pricing structure and how they get people started?
I would say most gyms kind of know they've probably come from another box in town where they were going, whether they coached or were a member there. They know what they were charging. And then what they actually do is go, well, let's go a little less than that.
Right. So mistake number one, but that's not real. That's as terrible as it sounds, that's the smaller of that huge ball of mistakes that we will call it. And again, always for the record, I am that guy.
You've done it. I did it.
Everybody's done it, right? So it's not like you're a bad person deal. It's just recognizing, that is a mistake. We should not do that moving forward, and continue to do it over and over and over. So this is one of the reasons that I wanted to discuss, because this is a very common error with regard to like, hey, what's it cost to join your gym? How do you bring people into the fold? And there's not a ton of rhyme or reason. So I just wanted to kind of walk through some of the mechanics or things to think about when building a front end offer, because that long term can set you up for failure or success. Like if you're dealing with a lot of discounts, if you are dealing with low profit margins, if you are dealing with poor retention, if you're dealing with, shitty clients, for instance, all of those have some sort of overlap with how you design the front end offer, because the front end offer is essentially how you communicate, how you filter, and how you integrate people into the community, and how you design that is really important. So I just kind of wanted to just talk about the skeleton of it, the why it's valuable, what problems it can prevent for you downstream, and help people if they are either thinking about rebuilding their front end offer, or they are thinking about opening a box. You can avoid some real heartache long term, because you're going to have to fix that problem and it's always harder to fix later on.
When you say front end offer, what specifically do you mean?
So front end offer is, so think about, if you're offering, your front end offer would be like, what is the initial offering when a prospective lead comes into the gym, right? So at CrossFit Rife, that is currently kind of the accelerator program. That front end offer looks like it is a combo of nutrition and training, and includes, it's all packaged and priced in there, their onboarding, right? So this front end, like what is the thing that they are going to interact with, both from a price standpoint, from a training standpoint, education standpoint, as they come through the box or into the box, and how you design that, how you promote it, how you incentivize it, how you communicate it, all of those things matter. And it does, quite frankly, it takes, some trial and error to get some things right if you want them to be unique.
So we've got some questions. We've got some topics to discuss. Cody.
Yeah. If
please,
you guys have questions, please drop those in the chat, because this can be a deep topic. So
listening, Cody will try to keep us on track. Cody, feel free to show yourself today. So let's talk about it. And Cody put in bold, actually in red and in bold, to be very clear that we don't get too deep on this one, right, Cody?
Yeah, you can't get lost. Not today.
So for those watching, Cody produces it, and then after he yells at us for how far, usually about equal time show to getting yelled at. Fern and I are kind of like stepbrothers in this. It's the one time we go shoulder to shoulder. We team up when Cody or Marcus or Katie.
I got a mouth of white dog shit right now.
This is when we team up against the parents. We're like, no, it's our show. But Cody keeps us on track. Let's talk about determine your athlete intake process. So step one, like, how do you even begin to consider and think about this?
Yeah. So, and please understand, for everybody, we're going to talk about this at a fairly cursory level, meaning like we're not going to go super into the weeds, because past like general outlines, my recommendation and my experience is that it should be unique to your box. Okay. But so the first thing when I'm saying like, what is the intake process is, how do I bring somebody into the gym? So examples would be, is it going to be a free trial class? Is it going to be a consult into a free trial class? Is it going to be a consult into some sort of on-ramp or foundations or fundamentals, whatever you want to call it? Is it going to be direct to class? Those are just a handful of different options. And so you have to figure out what that is going to look like. So what is the format, right? That's the first thing I figure out. And then a couple things you need to think about when you're designing the format is, what is the manpower available to me in order to facilitate said format? Okay. So that you have to pair those two things together. So that's the first thing you have to design, is like, how do I want to bring people in, and can I facilitate with my current coaching staff, available hours, logistics, all of this. That is a kind of a logistical exercise that you have to walk through. And there is no way, right? If you think about it, the number of people we have in Affiliate U, I would say off the top of my head, I can think of no less than 6 different variations that are pretty regular inside of Affiliate U that we build for people for their kind of like intake process, what that looks like. So that's the first thing you have to figure out, because from there you can start to reverse engineer everything, the actual step-by-step process, the naming, the pricing, all of that kind of stuff. But first you be like, what it is that you're going to be selling first. Then you can start to make some logical connections and connect the dots.
So obviously, as you go through, you need to think about what you're actually offering, right? Do you have an on-ramp, like Fern mentioned earlier? Is there nutrition discussions? What else is happening? I do think a mistake affiliate owners make, and then we'll talk about how we create the value adds. But a mistake affiliate owners make in general is like, well, I'm here anyway, so I'll do on-ramp or I'll do classes, etc. And then one thing we have to kind of walk back later on is, well, one, you should be getting paid for your time, because ultimately, if someone else is going to take that slot for you, they need to be getting paid. So as we get to, you know, the pricing and what it entails, we need to remember the long-term goal is someone else is probably coaching this and they are also getting paid for it.
Maybe, but the reality is it will probably be the box owner on the front end. And this is why designing it with the understanding that you will probably be coaching a lot of classes, doing all the admin is super important, which is why we don't want to get too rigid with the format and say like, so I always ask every box owner, I'm like, what version of this would allow you to facilitate it, show up and be bright eyed and bushy tailed and give somebody a good experience? And if you're coaching 15 to 20 hours a week, you're doing all of the admin and you're coaching the 5 a.m. to the 6 p.m., I'm probably not going to recommend a 3 to 4 session onboarding because you will literally pull your hair out. So then we have to revert, okay, like, well, then maybe that's not an option. And it doesn't mean that it won't be an option 6 months from now or a year from now. But like right now, what's the most effective means to get people through in an efficient manner and give them a good experience?
So when you're first starting, I think a lot of people are like, well, it's an on-ramp or an onboarding or whatever you want to call it. It's 1 to 3 sessions and then they do class. But in reality, that's a missed opportunity to add a ton of value into not just the on-ramp, but, you know, into that first month of their journey. So what are some of the ways they can create additional value?
So this is what we could kind of describe as like your value stacking exercise. So I think we've talked about this a little bit in previous podcasts, but never just solely this topic. So a kind of a value stack would be, actually, Cody, I'll ask you. So like, give me any number of things in the affiliate that have value. Meaning I can attach a monetary dollar to, or dollar value to.
Umbrella or like just singular thing?
Either one.
Okay, so I'm going to go right off the cuff, like ice bath, saunas, recovery stuff.
Okay.
You probably have some type of PT offerings.
Okay.
Nutrition coaching.
Good. Okay. So all of those would be an example. If I told you that was an offering, I would very quickly be able to attach a dollar figure to that, right? So like ice bath, sauna, call it $15 to $35 a session, depending on if I was to go out in town to a recovery business and pay for that by itself. Okay. Nutrition coaching, same thing. If I was to go hire a nutrition coach, that would have a dollar value. And then we forget some of the small things. Towel service, if you have 24-hour access, like all of these things have a dollar value. PT, dollar value, right? So
coffee.
When we
have coffee at the box, right?
Yeah, we have cold brew coffee that we used to charge for, and then we don't. It's just included now, right? It's just part of our operating expense that we factor in as far as like supplies and stuff like that. Budgeting, using YNAB, budgeting course. I'm like, all right, that's easy value add for the clients. Like, let's just forget it. It's too much of a hassle to charge people for it. It's just dumb. So all of that stuff, those are things that have value, so that when somebody comes in, they say, what do I get with my membership? Now I can have a logical conversation, because if the answer to that question is classes, it's going to be hard for somebody to connect the dots from, let's just call it $160 to just classes. It's a hard transition. And number one, that insinuates that we're just selling time and not value, right? So time has a cap based on the person I'm talking to. Value arguably is infinite, as long as I'm providing as long as I'm providing things that the person in turn finds valuable. Okay. So I want to be able to stack the number of things that find valuable. So what would they find valuable? Convenience, amenities, individualization, personal attention, all of those things have value, and there's things that you offer inside of the gym that could check those boxes. So first you design the format, then I look at like, how can I value stack right? And now I'm starting to layer on the pieces that would help me communicate the front end offer, because then there's follow-on actions to that.
Cool.
If I drink, Trish says if she drank a cold brew, well, not at CrossFit Rife, Trish, right? Yeah. We do in fact have an AED ready though, so we're good. The battery works, it's tested. We have firefighters in the facility, so you're good.
Hey, it's still the best pre-workout out there, Trish. So they do this, and like, you know, so how would a box begin to think that? Because, you know, Cody mentioned at first like a sauna and cold plunge. Cool, we don't have that, but we do have nutrition, like he mentioned. We do have the ability to do some one-on-one coaching. So
we'll think other small things, right? So I think a lot of times we overlook things that are seemingly mundane. Everything in the box has some value, right? Cody, give me something that's off that most boxes have, that's like just kind of like a one-off, or not a one-off, but like something that's like, yeah, just kind of like, it's just kind of glanced over.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier, like towel service could definitely be one.
Right. Because if I go to some other gyms, like they will actually charge for towel service. Mm-hmm. You know, like some big box gyms in some scenarios. But then it doesn't have to be actual things. Sometimes it could be time, right? So what else in the way of time or interaction? And I say, I don't love time, but time, like, that's how you would quantify it. But like, what else could the box owner or a coach give to a client that would have value?
Well, I mean, open gym would be an example.
Right. So that's convenience. What else? So think like,
for the record, I'm stumped as well, Cody. You're not
correct.
the only
Yeah.
Well, that's like why 24-hour access is another thing. Like, we're still talking convenience, but that's a different.
Right.
Like
I was going to say Friday Night Lights, a social experience.
Maybe, right? But think more regular. Think not like once a year, right? Like what when you follow up with clients, what do you kind of, okay?
I was going to say specialty classes. I was going to say specialty classes.
Yeah, were you? You were going to steal Matt's thunder here, specialty classes, right?
Specialty classes and workshops.
Workshops, right? Or think just like goal review sessions, in-body scans,
nutrition chats.
What's that?
Nutrition chats,
things like that. Those all have intrinsic value because there's a transference of information there, right? And information has value. So it doesn't always have to be like here's the thing, right? Like this is the only thing that has value. In a lot of instances, information has the most value, far more valuable than an actual physical thing.
You said that, Cody. You said people don't, people want to, they want to learn, right? They want progress. That's how you get it.
That's it.
So, okay, we're putting all these things together, friend. You're giving great ideas for people to consider. And I think a lot of the times affiliate owners like, well, I do that because I'm here. Like someone asked me about nutrition, I'll just talk about it. Or, somebody asked me to work on the kipping pull-up, I'll just show them for 15 minutes. And what you're suggesting is, yes, do that. But what you're also suggesting is there is value there and it's okay to charge, period. But it's also okay to bake that into your front end offer. So when people come in, they're like, hey guys, the foundation of fitness and health is nutrition. We're going to sit down with you for 30 minutes and that's part of the front end offer.
Right. And it's part of the sales process, right? And how you do that. Now they don't have to take you up on those, and you may be charging for them separately post that kind of front end offer. That's completely up to the gym owner. You don't have to do that, and you can do it really effectively both ways, right? So it could be to come in with the front offer that might be high ticket, and then that kind of comes down, and then you have those as upsell opportunities at a later date if you want to do that. Or you can just bake it into the cake, and our average regular membership is higher, but it includes all these things all the time. But again, that kind of goes into what the topic of the show is, just like they should be designed logically. So real quick, we'll just, Cody, can you do the math here? But we'll just run through this real quick. So Jay, what's a personal training session cost? What would you charge for a personal training session?
$120.
Just 1 hour?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So Cody,
$120 for the hour.
What would you charge for a 30-minute nutrition consult?
$75.
Okay. Put that in there, Cody. What would you charge at the gym if you were just going to charge for 24-hour access?
As an upsell to a standard membership?
Right.
Let's call it $24.
Ooh, all right. Throwing a wrinkle in there. $24.99 maybe. Got it. Okay. What would you charge for an in-body scan?
15.
Okay. Towel service.
Ooh, that's a good one. $10 a month.
Okay. What about a goal review session?
How long?
30 minutes.
I'll do 75.
Okay. What about some sort of sauna or cold plunge use?
Unlimited use sauna, cold plunge, $35 a month.
Okay, cool. And then if you were to do a one-off movement assessment,
120.
okay, cool. So and then what is your membership for the gym?
215.
215. Okay. What's the damage there, Cody?
$689.
$689, right? And this is the point, right? From a sales standpoint, all of those things have value. And if you were going to charge for all of them separately, that could be what would end up stacking in somebody's kind of invoice for the month, right? Now, what you can do knowing that is just like, hey, this has a value of X amount of dollars for you as a new client. I'm going to give it to you. What was it, Cody?
689.
689. So let's just swag and call it $700, right? And let's just say, but by the way, if Jay threw out a couple numbers that you were freaked out by, meaning like as a box owner, you're listening to this, that you're freaked out by, that's cool. Just give whatever your numbers are, right?
And for the record, I went low on the one-on-one stuff because I tried to price it around what people would feel consistent.
But I'm going to act as the new box owner who would not charge 120 for a single personal training session. They charge 55, right? So understanding that the price points would float around here. But the point is, hey, this has a $700 value. And as the new client that comes in, I'm going to give you all of these things because here's the point. Whether the client or the person sitting on the other seat agrees with Jason's price point or not, they did assign a dollar value to it, whether you know it or not. Right? They're like, hey, you get this. They're like, okay, that's worth some money, and this, and that's worth some money, and this, and that's worth some money. So when you're value stacking this is one of the strategies that you can use. And then I say, but here's what we're going to give that to you for, right? So it is a sales strategy, but it is a sales strategy based on leading with the value so that when you come in with the price point, they are probably assuming a number higher than what you are about to give them. Okay. Now there's a lot of people coming out there. Well, then you should raise the price. I'm like, that's a process. Slow down, pump the brakes, everybody. We're trying to teach a principle here. Like, yes, you can charge more. I would argue you can't charge more until you're really good at shit. And most people, when they're starting out, are not really good at it. So that you should do something that falls more in the reasonable bucket. Okay. I'm not a fan of everybody who lives in this fantasy world that you can just charge everybody as much money as you want, because that's just not real life. Okay. So if it's $700 and I'm like, however, for you as a new client, when you come in, it's going to be $340. I just came in at 50% of what that value stack would equal if they were have to go out and find all of that separately at another spot. Not to mention, before we talk about time, right, to go find all of these things. Right. So pull that up real quick, Cody.
Michael.
Yeah, it does, right? And this is the point, right? And this is the point of like building a front-end offer. And this is one of the things that we take people through all the time, which is they're like, I don't know if people are going to pay that money. I'm like, what's included? And it takes like two things before we would get to a price point that would be higher than their average monthly membership. Right?
And I also think, in our experience, Fern, a lot of affiliate owners put their feelings about money into other people. Right. Like
I used to think that too. And while they do, it is what I have found over the years, it is far less about that. That's definitely an aspect, right? So we definitely don't want to overlook like people's shit with money, right? It's a thing. You have shit with money. I got shit with money. Cody's got shit with money. Everybody's got stuff.
I've worked for my shit, so I'm good.
Well, you should revisit that because you have a lot of work to do. But the point is this, it's significantly less about their stuff or their feelings about money then it has to do with their lack of working through an exercise like this, because logic will defeat those feelings 9 times out of 10. Because if I line these things up, I'm like, what is that worth? And they're like, it's worth this much money. And they're like, yeah, it is worth that much money. And I'm like, cool. Now what we've done is we've inserted a level of confidence inside the sales process that cannot be overlooked, right? Because if you are not confident in the sales process, I guarantee you the person you are selling to can smell it on you.
Well,
They're just like, I'm going to haggle you now, right?
I want to add 2 layers to this, and that is the person that says yes to the 340 even that you suggested, we immediately know it's like, okay, they're probably going to be a decent member here, because part 2 of that is like, if that person does everything you just laid out, have a nutrition talk, have a mindset, does an in-body, does a one-on-one movement assessment, does some plunging and sauna work, you're like, oh, they're actually going to make like so much change in their life. They're going to never want to leave. So part of it is it's true value. Like nothing you put out there was fluff, for the record. Like it was all like, you should offer this. And if that person does what you're offering, like I was like, oh, that's a really awesome value. And I'm going to get a ton of, success from it.
And herein lies the strategy in this process, is like that should be the outcome, right? Is that what I lead with, like, what do you get? The value is overwhelming, so that this is one of many steps to overcoming price objections, is that like what you offer them should drastically outpace what they're willing to pay, right? It should be so much higher than that, so that they can start to balance these out, right? And again, I don't want to get into the dollars, because it's like, what you charge whatever you want at your gym. And if you're like 340, that's cheap, and I'm like, probably so. That's not the point. The point is the exercise, right? What's the value versus what you're going to charge? And so that's one of the key indicators. But you got to line those things out. And people, we'll have people that will line 20 things in there. I had somebody the other day, I was reviewing some homework, and we're just like, hey, what are the things
homework for affiliate clients?
Yeah. They were like, what would be a problem that you could solve? And one was like, lose a ton of weight. And then this actually like caught me off guard. And they're like, what would it be worth? And they put like $20,000.
I think that's accurate. Like the people that are,
I'm probably wrong on the number, but it was a 5-figure number is my point.
Yeah. It should be more than a car. Like,
right. So I was just, and me, and I do this for a living. And I was like, good for you. I was like, you know what? You're probably right. And this depends on the person. Right. But so they were looking at their value stack, and it was like $140,000. Now it probably sounds a little bit over the top, right? Is it worth
yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, it's different, but I'm saying the true value of that, and for the listeners, I always recommend asking this question, like, hey, if I solved that problem for you, that problem, you came to me and said, I want to lose 50 pounds. Like if I said today we can do that for you, how much would you be willing to pay? And it's like astronomical, right? Like
this depends on what it is that they value and their why, right? That's a different discussion about the consult, so that you can figure that out, so that you can start to connect the dots for them, right? So, but that's the whole point, is that like when it comes to monetary exchange of currency, right? What we have to dial up is a logical sequence of events that they can come to the conclusion that is reasonable and falls in line with what they value, right? So that's the whole purpose of the value stack exercise, so that you as an owner can start to outline what it is that you actually offer and what people get when they come into your gym, but then B, you can start to overcome this price objection, because they're like, oh, that's a lot. Like that's a lot. Right? Because if I have those things, I'll use Virginia Beach. Okay. On the low end, CrossFit affiliate memberships are like on the low end, $135, $140 here, maybe. Okay. On the high end, $200. We're like on the higher end here. And if I was to go to like a recovery place, I'm spending no less than $50 for one visit. For one visit,
yeah.
For one visit. But if I'm going to buy the creme de la creme, like membership or whatever, $250, like all day long, right?
Yeah, I think when we went to Ice with Marcus, like the guy hooked us up, and it would have been like $25.
Right.
To go in an ice, right? Like
one time.
And not to mention I have to go there. Like
that's
I'm already
my point.
Here. Yeah.
Right. That's my point. So, and again, everybody should probably starting to pick up on all of this, and that's the point. But you have to outline it, because until you write it down and you put it on paper, it can be challenging for you to understand your value, right? You understanding your value is not this exercise to be like, I'm valuable. Like, that's not the exercise, right? Like, it's not, like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. That's not the exercise. The exercise is like, tangibly, what do you offer that is of a value to other people, right? Not your pride about your ability to train, right? That is a thing. I would argue it is far further down the road than most people think. And it probably falls in line with like, your reputation precedes you, is when you can now lean on that. When somebody else told somebody else, they're like, yo, that guy or that gal is the best you're ever going to see. At that point, that is something that you can lean on. But that is, you're going to have to put in work for that. You're talking about like being in the game for 10 plus 15 years and just crushing everything that you touch, which everybody should be doing. But again, I need to lean on other things as well while I'm building that resume of like, I'm the best.
So go ahead. As a coach that gives away knowledge for free, the hardest part for me is feeling selfish for dude, Michael, that's everything Fern just said. And part of it is, I don't know what you're like, if you have a family, if you have kids, like, you also have to think about it from that perspective. Like, I know you're at the box, right? But it's still a time away from you doing other things you love, things you enjoy, things you could be charging for. And I can tell you, as someone, and I know Fern and Cody were probably both the same, I think it's very normal that you go through that. Once you charge, I'll give a true story. I'm reading that book, Jason Skisick, who was in my L1 workshop, for Enlifted, the Navalmanac, I think it's called. Naval, I'll grab it. I've referenced it enough time. I just can't. Naval Ravikant. And he was like, come up with your dollar amount that you're worth per hour. Right. And then ideally it's probably more than you would actually come up with. But then one of the lessons I learned from that is he's like, okay, anything less than that you can hire for, cool. Well, now pay them, because your time is more valuable being spent working on your business or doing other things. There's the book. Yeah, Cody. I see.
That's a slippery slope, right? And I've seen people like just jump off the deep end with that. So like it's a novel concept. However, the practical side of that is just like, you have to be able to pay somebody to do that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I haven't gotten that.
And this is where people jump the gun, and I'm like, well, you don't have that. So you should take your ass to work. But
the bigger picture was really doing the exercise of thinking what your hour is worth. And again, for you, Michael, like, it's easy to just look at it. It's like, I'm just a coach, or I'm like, when people are giving you money, you're giving them a solution to a problem. And that problem might be, I want to pull up. That problem might be, I want to lose 30 pounds. That problem might be, I want to feel more confident and better about myself. And I've also learned the people that pay you work harder. They're more committed. We've all done it before. You've given away free memberships. I've given away free memberships. And those people don't really appreciate it and actually use it. So, Michael, I want you to reflect, come up with that number, and start charging.
And Michael, anybody else that's listening that is new to the game, you might have this feeling, well, like, my time is actually not worth that much because I'm new. Correct. But it is still worth something, right? It's not worth $120 an hour, but on the bare minimum, you could go off of kind of like market averages and be like, all right, it's a bare minimum worth like $40 an hour, right? Even though I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. But you could, the exercise would still hold if you did it that way. Because if I stacked 3 $40 an hour sessions, we're at 120 already. That's before the membership, before any of the other things, right? And if you still have reservations about your skill set, this is where you bring in the other aspects of what the business has to offer. So it's your expertise combined with what the business has to offer. And that's how you start to value stack this stuff so that you can put it together. And when you present it, it works really well.
Yeah. And a lot of what that Naval's book did for me too is, I think it's easy to look at it as like the hour. And I'm like, oh, no. It's 30 years. Well, outcome as well, right, Fern? But it's also 30 years of hard work. Like, you're not paying me an hour because I'm currently in L4 or you're coaching affiliates, etc. But it's the 30 years of experience that no one else has. And even for a newer coach, like whether you've been through level 1 or you've been doing CrossFit for 5 or 10 years, you have valuable experience there.
And this is this is a process. I want to emphasize that, right? You can't just jump to the front of the line and do all, like, everybody listening will go through multiple iterations of this where they're like, okay, you value stack it and it's just okay. And then you get better and then you value stack it again and then you adjust the price and then you value stack it again and you adjust the price. Like if I think back 5, 7, 10 years of what the value stack was before versus what it is now, different planets. That's the way it should be. And that's the process. So when you're going through this, understand you might not feel great about the value stack. Well, you're still in the process. Like just keep working and continue to reevaluate it and assess it and get better at it. And then that will work itself out. But that the exercise will still hold, even if it's just like slim. You're like, I got 4 things on there. I'm like, all 4 of those things have value.
Can you pull up Aaron's statement, Cody?
Eric or Aaron?
Aaron.
Oh,
partly because I appreciate it, Aaron. I think that's probably Aaron,
right.
From San Diego, one of our
yeah.
clients. This is something I learned way back when, I quote 2 people, one, the Grateful Dead, and second, Coach Glassman. And I think a lot of what I've learned, from both of their business models is like, you got to put shit out there. Like you got to show people your value. And also like, this is fun for us. We love talking about this. And yeah, like if someone finds value, I know there have been things I've paid for, Fern, where it's like literally free on the internet. And like somebody would be like, hey, I've consolidated all of it. And it's like $10. I'm like, cool. Charge me for it because you've made my life easier. And I think for a lot of people, we put it out there. Like you can learn a ton about affiliates for free through us and coaches development, but you also recognize like, oh, these 2 know what they're doing. So I think there's value to putting it out there as like some free stuff to get other people, like do a free workshop on the pull-up. And then maybe you'll have 2 or 3 people that are like, I need to learn more about that.
Yeah. And here's what that looks like. If you would like to work with me, it costs X because they want to pull up, and that's outcome based, right? So those, you can charge anything for an outcome. Now you got to be careful with that. You can't charge $600 to give somebody for a single session unless you are for sure going to get them a pull up in, that 30 minutes or whatever. And even then that's based on like how much do they want the pull up,
This is first.
This is a big one.
Teffy is watching the progression now. She's gonna. Did
Teffy,
she email you, Cody? Did Teffy email you?
Not yet.
Teffy.
She's the resident flow master in Mexico.
America, yeah. Teffy.
America. No,
Latin America. Latin America.
Oh, Latin America. All I heard was America.
You're supposed to email Cody. We're gonna get. She's gonna come on and one of our breaking down the L1s. All right.
Okay. But yeah, I think that's an important exercise for people to work through because again, the logical nature of outlining these things and then it removes a lot of the emotion and makes it easier for you to communicate because that comes into the next piece, which is price it and pitch it.
So let's hear about that.
Yeah. So price it, we kind of just worked through the pricing point, but now you have to kind of practice that price and pitch aspect, which is like eventually somebody's going to ask you, all right, so what's the damage on this? How does this work? Right. And then when we think about the price and the pitch, a lot of times people get this backwards, and this kind of comes into like how you anchor with pricing. And, I tell you who outlines this really well, probably better than anybody, is Alex Hormozy.
I knew you were going to say Hormozy. Yeah,
he does. He outlines it really, really well. And for anybody that hasn't read a couple of his books, you should. Right. So forget how you feel about the ads and gym launch and all that kind of stuff. There's definitely some things to be learned there because he outlines these very, very well. But essentially the number of times people will essentially ruin a pitch because things are out of sequence is a lot more than necessary. Right. So $100 million offer. And I think he's
talking about giving it away for free. It's $1.
It's $1.
I guess that's not free for the record. Talk about giving it away for $1.
Right. So when you're talking about the price and the pitch, you need to think through order of operations, and the anchor price it's kind of 2 numbers you're looking at, right? So we want to establish like, what's the least amount that I want to get with regard to like providing my service, right? So that's the floor. And then I'm going to anchor that against like, what's the most it would cost. Okay. So thinking about, I'll give our numbers. So when somebody comes in and they want to do like, we're like, hey, we start with the accelerator program, which is a combo of nutrition and training, $379, right? So $379 is the anchor price. So I'm starting up here, and then everything else after that, I'm pulling the price down to figure out A, what do they value? And B, where is a price point that they're comfortable with, knowing that they might not be comfortable with any of it, right? but I have to anchor it to something to create some sort of reference point for all of these dollars. Right. And we just mapped out what it was and everything that's included in that, you could charge separately up to $5,000 in what we would be offering in that package. Now, some of you might, well, then you should charge
You
more.
actually
I'm like,
offer.
we will charge more. We absolutely will. But
What?
not right now. Right. I'm happy with that. So their first month in the door, they'll charge like, I think it's fives. I can't do math, like 5 something, you know, like 549 or something like that. Right. For their first month to include onboarding and then their accelerator program. And that would be for 12 weeks. Okay. And that'd be every 4 weeks, essentially, is what I'd be doing there. So for that 12 weeks, total cost there is like $1,200, $1,200 to $1,500, and everything included. Okay. But I've anchored that. And if with that number and now the 180, if they're not interested in all of those things, seems very reasonable now based on where I started. Right.
Well, and the people that are willing to pay that, like they're there for life because they're looking at it. Well, it's like, man, I committed $1,500. Like, I'm not just going to give up at the, first sign that I don't want to be here or things,
Well, this also is important from a standpoint of filtering for shitty clients, right? This is how you do that, right? If somebody comes in like, well, I just don't want any of that. And I'm like, well, then this is not the place for you. Or like, I just want an open gym membership. I'm like, we don't actually offer those.
You have to be willing to send people elsewhere when you know the value you bring.
So if they come in, but I start there, okay, I know what my floor is and then I know where my anchor is, and I offer them like, hey, here's what I think would be valuable for you. Now we can start to have that conversation about like, what is the outcome? Because I'm not trading time, I'm trading outcomes, right? Like you're going to pay me money, I'm going to get you an outcome. That's what we're looking for. And this makes it significantly easier through the sales process because they probably just told me what it is that they want.
So check out Eric's question here.
Would you offer different tiers? Say you get that person that isn't interested in all the bells and whistles. They want to show up to classes, so they don't even they don't see the value, the other stuff. This is an education piece, Eric, and I think this because here's the deal: everybody will take the lower price point. It's not weird if people want to pay less money. I'm going to say that again. It's not weird if people want to pay less money. Everybody wants to pay less money. Raise your hand if you would not pay less money for a thing if given the opportunity. That's what I thought.
The way you asked it confused me.
Right.
I want to pay less money.
Right. Exactly. You do want to pay less money, right? So
he asked it in a weird way, right, Cody? He asked it like
I was like,
I'm not sure now. Yeah. I just don't want to pay as much as you're asking.
Right. Exactly. But that's the point, right? So when we think about that, this is another thing that people make mistakes on when they build a front end offer is they build what I've come to describe as like off ramps. They're like, here's the thing, but if you want to do that, here's another thing that I'm not super stoked about. It isn't super useful to the business. And if you don't like that one, I've got this really shitty offer for me as far as it works for me, but you can take that one just so I can get a transaction out of you. And don't build the off ramps. Be like, here's what we have to offer. If you want the outcome, you're going to need to use all of these anyway. Right? Because if I was to ask you, Eric, be like, hey, what if they don't want all of those? I'd be like, they don't want results? Then don't sell them a membership.
Dude, did I tell you this story? So we go to the mall with Madison, like to take her.
Put a pin in that. I want to come back to that, Cody, because I want to talk about the education piece. But go ahead. You went to the mall with Madison.
So I went to the mall with Madison. What's that?
You guys are going to buy Annie's pretzels. You're at the mall.
Yeah, Annie's pretzels, extra cheese. And they have like a shoe shining thing. I think I've talked about this. And the dude was like, let me shine I'm wearing like my shitty Nobles, like old Noble, like that can't really be shined anymore.
Wants to shine your Nobles?
Yeah, right. But he's just he's like, hey, I get paid if you just come here. I was like, sure, I'll help you out. Shine my shoe. And then he does. And he's like, still trying to do his speech. And he's like, what? You don't like clean shoes? And I was like, damn.
Oh, damn.
Like, am I the kind of guy that doesn't like clean?
And do I look homeless?
Yeah. But like, the point is, like, you said something that's like, you don't want to be healthy? Like, that's what you have to like go in with that mindset. Like, this package makes like, we're not really considering the impact that like going back to the one that we created at $700. Like, imagine if your mom who doesn't do CrossFit. You want her to be healthy. She's got like pre-diabetes, and she came in and was like, I'm going to do this. You'd be like, you're going to get healthy, mom, in the next 3 months. Like, this is going to be awesome. Like, that's what you have to project and be confident in it.
Well, again, let's go back to the education piece. Is like,
true,
they're not going to want it if they don't know how it would be useful to them. Right. So like thinking like, again, it's always important to remember how much we all know compared to the consumer that walks in the door.
Forget that. Like, I don't need to know anything about nutrition. How do you like, let's talk about that. Right. Like,
right. And they're just like the sauna, be like, I'm not, you're like the sauna, like, I'm not really into sweating. Right. Like, well, there's a tremendous value past just sweating. Right. Same thing with cold plunge or whatever else you've got going on. Like those things have, you know, and some people would argue anecdotally, but like, I would disagree with the amount of people using them. Bare minimum, you could just throw healthy user bias in there, but they do have value. Your job is to educate them on how the additional use of these tools on whatever frequency is appropriate would help them get the desired outcome, right? So, because if you said, be like, hey, they came in and they told you like, you know, I really, I want my joints to feel better and I would like to lose, you know, about 10 to 15 pounds and make sure that I can do this, either get into this wedding dress or do this mud run in 6 months. You're like, okay, cool. Well, you mean to tell me that like training regularly, cleaning up your diet and having some sort of like regular recovery protocol isn't going to get them faster? I'm like, no, you're high. Like, stop. Like, that's a silly statement.
I am high, but it also does work. How about
correct?
That? How about that? So thinking they may not understand the value until they're in it is naive, right? If they're not into it, I think that's kind of what you're suggesting, Fern. Like, you need to be capable and confident in explaining the value of these things so the new person that walks in sees it.
And by the way, this goes into like the things that we talk about with regard to doing class evaluations. Like, did a coach did they explain the why behind everything? And I want to walk through this because this is important. When you say that, most people will jump to over explaining, right? Okay, well, like, why are we doing this? Well, guys, because we want to make sure that we're getting the hip joint warmed up because we're looking for external rotation of the femur when we're squatting. Like, no, guys, we're going to do some toy soldiers in order to get the hamstrings loosened up. The end, right? You don't need to give them the dissertation on it, right? You could just be like, hey, and we have recovery services because those will significantly help with recovery so that you can get a higher frequency of training, at which point you will get results faster. Cool. I think everybody's in for that, right? Like that's the point, right? You have to think about like how we think about education, but that's the first nugget. And then I might bake in other pieces of education to the tail end of that, right? So I know we're talking about the recovery stuff, but thinking about like nutrition or like, hey, it's the base of the pyramid. I have that conversation on the front end. I'm not hammering nutrition coaching down their throat, but I'm having the conversation. Be like, listen, if you want to get what you want out of this, we're going to have to talk about this eventually. And if you're not ready, totally fine. But we are here when you're ready because we know, the trajectory eventually levels off until you start to play around with the nutrition. Right. So it's an education piece, and that should be done in multiple forms over multiple different time domains.
What is your package called? I have that name off weird. Let's talk.
His name is Richard.
Stay away from that trap.
What
I call him Dick for short. Yeah.
What is your front end? What is your front end offer called?
Accelerator program.
The accelerator program. Because one of the things we want to talk about is naming it.
Yeah. And I think this is something that I really struggled with for a long time. It's just like when naming things, it's hard to find something that's like not cheesy or seems sleazy or anything like that. So think outcome. When you're thinking about naming something, like you want it to be overt and you would really like it to be outcome based, right? So when we're talking about accelerator, you're just like faster. Okay, cool. That is overt and it is the desired outcome. We would like to get you there faster. And it's not weird. We're just like, we would get you there faster if you combined both the training and the nutrition and then sprinkle a little bit of recovery on there. You would get the outcome faster than you would otherwise. So when you're thinking about naming, run through it and don't be quick to name things, right? Like write some things down, sit on it, chew it, toss it around, ask other people about it, like chop it apart, rename it, but like find something that communicates the message very, very quickly, right? So again, think about the importance of naming. We could use what we all know in CrossFit, right? So if I say Fran to both of you, you know what that means.
Common
right?
vernacular.
We don't have to talk about it, right? And when we're talking about naming, this is right? They don't need to know CrossFit, but they understand the English language. And if I can give them something that is both overt and outcome based, I don't need to explain all the other things, right? I'm like, hey, you want to do the accelerator program? The average person is going to be like, my sense is that is going to get me there faster than the original plan. Like, correct. That's why we named it the accelerator package, right?
So name it. Do you have like 3 or 4 common names we've seen?
Oh God, there's like so many names. Like a lot of people have like some people come up with seasonal names, right? So like summer shred package, right? And they'll rinse and repeat those names based on the seasons, and that way they can kind of like wash the front end offer and resell it as something new, which is fine. It's a tactic, right? It's the same
summer,
thing,
right?
Right?
Like
yeah.
Winter bod, whatever. That's a great question. We'll come back to that, Michael. Accelerator was a car. All right, so they've named it, and then we have build it, sell it.
Build it is meaning like the mechanics of building it, right? So I understand all the mechanics of like, hey, if this, then that. And then what the actual sale looks like, meaning like, how do we actually exchange money? How do I build it on the back end so that it's seamless for the client? Meaning like, are they signing, meaning how do they book their appointments? Are they signing paper versus electronic waiver? How many times do I need to collect payment? Like, how do they actually sign an agreement if you've got one? All of those things now get factored in to the building of it and then selling it so that when somebody comes through, it's almost like you thought it through. Right. And you don't get to the end. You're like, we exchange Bitcoin. Like we've got, do you like crypto or just IOU would be good too. Right. So like you need to think through all of those things. Oh, Michael coming in with the heat. Biggest donor of all time. We're rich. We're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler.
Oh, man. Sizzler, when I was wrestling in high school, was the go-to. No, I think ultimately what you're saying in this entire discussion thus far leads to like there needs to be thought
correct
behind it, and so many box owners have not put any thought, and then it's like you get to the sale and you're like you're suggesting like stumbling over your words, and I would throw on top of that, and I think you agree with this, they should be practicing this sales pitch.
Oh, it's super apparent. I think I've told this story before, but like we had even if you stumble through, but you checked all the boxes, you can make the sale, right? I think I told the story. I was sitting in the office and one of our other coaches, he was just like bumbling through like what the prices were. And so I was sitting there listening and I can hear him just kind of like stuttering. So I just kind of like lean over towards the door so I can kind of like listen to it. But I'm like, yep, he's still got the right order. It's good. Boom. And then like all of a sudden be like 2 paid in fulls on the spot, right? $3,400, right?
Practice.
Now, had he not given in the right order, that definitely would not have landed. But the more you practice, what you will do, just like everything is, you will find an economy of words that is both relevant and concise enough that explains the full picture so that people are like, I get it. Right? Because people are always like, should I have like a pricing sheet? And I'm like, if you need a pricing sheet, you need to practice more. You should not need a pricing sheet.
And for the record, a lot of box owners, a lot of coaches are like, sales is a 4-letter word, right? Like sales is not a 4-letter word.
They came to you and asked to give you money.
And you know what? You're in sales. Unfortunately, like that's the reality of this. Like you're selling something, right? And you know, I hear it right now. They're working on my landscaping. Like that guy's in sales. Everyone's in sales if you're asking for money. So all we're suggesting is you do a better job at it. We're not saying be sleaze. Nothing Fern has put out there. If anything, we're being far more transparent. And like
correct.
The main goal is we actually want you to come in and get value. Like this isn't fun for me if you don't use this and make like we fell in love with CrossFit because we want you to be successful. So I know this might seem like a lot, but you're going to get so much out of it if you sign up.
Well, the reason most people that we work with have this like this aversion to sales is because they haven't thought it through, at which point it becomes an illogical pitch because they're struggling to connect like what it is that they're giving and the value. When you walk through these exercises and you walk through every single point, it becomes really hard not to be okay with the sale because like that makes sense. It makes sense. Like this just makes total sense. I put it on paper and I'm like, I don't feel bad about that at all. Like we're over delivering as a matter of fact is what everybody typically comes to the conclusion of, right? Oh, this is a steal. I'm like, in fact, it is a steal based on what you're giving them.
Well,
like,
I'm actually losing money if you sign up for this.
Yeah, I'm charging you $6,000 for this.
By the way, Cody, with that $15 from Michael, does that mean Fern is now on the highest generating revenue show we've had?
Correct.
It's a tie, right? It's a tie.
Yeah, it is a tie.
So I know we've got a bunch of questions starred by Cody. Cody, you also had some questions in the shoot like from before this. So why don't you go through, think about what the best questions were going to be? We don't have a sponsor today, do we?
Nope, no sponsor today.
Okay, well then I'm going to run to the bathroom while you guys talk.
I will volunteer as volunteer as tribute to sponsor the show. Actually, you know what? Michael is the sponsor for the show.
Michael, thank you. Michael is our new
Here we go. Michael's the sponsor of the show.
$5 each for coffee. You don't know what Cody drinks. He needs more than $5.
We're going to need more than that, Michael.
All right. Cool. So Fern, got some questions and we got some starred from the chat. Let's hit some of those first, and we'll hit the ones that I had in the email here. All right. So first one was earlier on from Trish. I don't like the LEO education discount. I know gyms that only have LEO teacher members because no one wants to pay $150 when everybody else is paying $80.
Correct. Right. So first and foremost, if you want to offer certain discounts at your gym because you just feel that is something you want to do, then offer the discounts. All we always tell everybody is just understand what the outcome of that is, which is creates a level of unfairness inside of the gym. So we've talked about this ad nauseum in the show, like those discounts, while yes, we appreciate what they do, they're just arbitrary. They're just occupation based. And the reality is just like, where does it end? Right? Does it end at LEO and educator, or are we now looking at like who, like, what about if you're EMS? What if you're an ER nurse? What if you're an educator? Like, what if you're a college professor who makes $275,000 a year because you're tenured? Like, do you like, again, it never ends, and it just becomes a weird kind of unfairness that just seeps through the gym. Right. So we don't like them because they don't make sense, meaning like they're not fair and they're not available to everybody. But if you want to offer them. I don't care. But just understand what that means.
Next one up is from Matt Miller. Should it be a flat fee, minimal management of processes, or tiered with multiple upsell opportunities? And I think you hit on that a little.
Yeah, you can do this both ways. But again, that's a question that is, it depends, which is if you do not have the resources or systems to upsell into, and you're just trying to upsell, then I'm like, you've made a poor decision here, right? Otherwise, just create your flat fee. But because you can always build into upsells later, whether it be specialty programming or cycles or PT or nutrition or whatever it might be, it depends, right? But it should be built intentionally so that there is a logical path or logical leap from, oh, you were here, and then I teed up this other thing, which was intended to, upsell you into this thing because you found it to be valuable. So the workshop would be a perfect example, right? I did a workshop we just had a snatch clinic here at CrossFit Rife, right? At which point we sold quite a few what I would call like supplemental programs for people who want to do a little bit of strength work outside of their normal CrossFit training, which is what Phil and the team put together. And I'm like, perfect. But the clinic was intended to sell those things, right? And you had to pay to go to the clinic, right? Not a ton of money, but you had to pay to go to the clinic. So you should build it logically, right? You don't just be like, my recommendation to everybody is do not just sell things for the sake of selling things. Number one, you're going to have a hard time selling them. Number two, you're going to be miserable when you have to deliver on them. if you're going to try to do it well. Everybody's just like the money. And I'm like, I think about like the time. I'm like, that is a labor intensive exercise that you just sold right there, because you have no systems in order to do that.
Next one up from Matt here.
Whoa, so long. Matt Miller.
How do you first educate a prospective client if you have a menu of standalone services that you legitimately offer, and you make that menu public, and you also have basic monthly gym membership fee as a service on that menu? Do you lead with the monthly gym membership, the highest dollar item, or let the client decide what is most important to them?
Ooh, okay. So that last piece kind of throws a wrinkle into it, but like when with regard to sales in general, I wouldn't consider myself a sales expert, but most sales experts are going to tell you this. You are in control of this, or you should be at the very least in control of the sales process at all times. So information gets presented in the order that you have determined leads people to the desired outcome always, right? At no point does somebody get to come in and tell you that you have to flip around your sales process. So I think what he's asking here, how do you first educate a prospective client if you have a menu of standalone services that you legitimately offer? I think what he's referring to is just like when he says make the menu, make that public menu public, meaning like do you offer them on your website? I think that's what he means, but I could be wrong there, Matt. So if you want to clarify on that, that would be fantastic.
Well, I think of it like maybe you do offer open gym access for whatever, $50 a month, and you also have your gym membership fee. Do they need to be a gym member to also access the open gym if you have it listed as standalone items on your website?
Got it. So this depends on what your business model looks like, right? And if you are a CrossFit gym, I would not recommend selling those one-off, right? So again, let's walk through it here. Let's go with worst case scenario, because that's typically what will happen. Somebody's paying $150, Jay, right? We'll use Jay as an example. He's paying $150 membership, right? For whatever reason, Jay starts to think that the programming at the gym is warm milk toast. Okay.
I use the term milk toast on Cariana's episode on the podcast, and they're like, "What is that?" I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah, not MILK, not MILK. So logically speaking, what is immediately Jay going to do?
If I offer the open gym membership,
it's going to drop to the open gym membership, and now my ACV has just plummeted by 60%. Okay, and we have to think about that, right? That's an off ramp, right? That I probably unknowingly and unwittingly put in there. Be like, oh, here's an easy way for you to give me significantly less money than I am worth because I didn't put any forethought into it, right? So if you're going to offer those things, think about like what would be there. I always think this is the same way you design like a workout for competition. I'm like, how would somebody cheat? And I would not do that thing. So I'm not going to put things in there that are going to cause me financial harm or, financial distress with regard to the client. Now, if you run a different business model and you want to be, no group classes, no coaching, and it's just like, I want volume in there, that's a different game, which is fine if you want to do that. It's typically not what most box owners are doing. Okay.
Right.
And selling these low threshold things can become a real problem. Now, typically the order of operations would be like, okay, I'm got my membership. I bring in something of value. I'm trying to cover my overhead on that, whether it be sauna, cold plunge, open gym, like whatever. And then I'll charge for it. Right. And then over time, what will typically ends up happening, or what probably ends up making the most sense, is I raise my price so that it's just included for everybody. And you actually end up making more money in those overall transactions than you would for the subset of people that wanted to pay for the upcharge. Okay. Yeah. Now you don't have to do it that way, but that would be something to consider, which is like, if we just offer it blanketly, then it's better for everybody. Now they have more access, they have more value. The gym makes more revenue. I can continue to reinvest that into either human resources or facility or whatever. And it's a win-win for everybody.
All right. I got a quick 3 more.
Go ahead.
All right. Incentives for certain things at sign up, right? Like right now I'm joining the gym. It's my, it's my very first, initial entrance into CrossFit Rife. Mm-hmm. Is it a good idea to, at that point, offer an incentive for whatever, right? It could be supplements. It could be for one of your added services. It's like right now
Right.
at this point, we're going to say you have the opportunity to take advantage for those for 25% less. You get a
Right.
one-time discount right now, and then after that, it's gone.
So couple asterisks to that. If in fact you think that you're doing a good job with those, meaning like you think that those products or services are valuable to them and you do a good job with them, and you think it would be valuable to them, or you think it would be valuable to them, then yes, I would tee those up, because I've done two things now. And number one, it's time sensitive, right? So it creates some sense of urgency. And then number two, if I think about buyer life cycle, people are more inclined to spend more money up front, meaning like it's a new thing, they're all in. So like thinking of somebody comes in, they join the CrossFit gym, and they're like next week they're wearing no bulls. The week after that they got grips, and they got a weight belt. Like they're trying to get all of the things on the front end, and it's a good place to introduce a lot of those things, right? You don't need to be sleazy, because they don't have to buy. Right? Be like, hey, if you on your first month, you get a 30% discount on any supplements. And based on what you told me, you have a real problem like getting protein intake. So I would prefer that you get it via real food. But if you can't get it via real food, you may want to try it like using some sort of protein in order to get to the goal, because you said you want to put on lean muscle mass, right? That's a logical sale at a timely input that they told me that they find valuable, right? I'm not going to go sell them a bunch of crap that they didn't ask for. But if they told me they want those things and I have the ability to offer them, then yeah, I would offer them, and I would put an incentive in there, because the likelihood of a repurchase is pretty high.
One of the first gyms that I coached at, they offered, I think grips, a jump rope, and maybe like a workout tracking book, all at a discount.
Right. Oh, so like okay, or some sort of like new member package or something like that.
Right, like you could do a gift box for new members, right? But that's more like an initiation into CrossFit Rife, right? Like you get a sticker and a shirt or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, but we're talking like, hey, you're going to need a jump rope, and you're either going to get it here, or you're going to go to Academy or Dick's Sporting Goods or order one off Amazon. Why not go ahead and offer that to them right there at the front?
I think that makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you in that scenario? Like if they're going to need it, right? There's certain things you can assume that the expenditure is going to happen, right? Not always. Some people don't give a shit about jump ropes, but if you can assume the expenditure is going to happen, why wouldn't you make it financially advantageous for them? You should, right? As long as you don't eat your whole profit margin, right? You know they're gonna buy it anyway. You might as well make a little money off the transaction, maybe brand it, whatever. And now you're helping them by giving them the tools that they need to come in and feel comfortable and track, which means they're probably going to get better progress or whatever it might be. So yeah, I don't have any problem with that, as long as, again, but the key is they're like logically placed, meaning like I put it there because I know this is something they're going to be interested at this point in their journey.
All right, I got one from Michael over here, and I like the way that he worded this. This is really good.
I spent 30 minutes post-workout working with an athlete, working on drills to string kipping pull-ups and to help him get his first chest to bar. Did I add value to his membership, or did I miss his sale? I mean, potentially a little bit of both. Now, if you don't have the bandwidth for PT, and this isn't something that you don't think necessarily is PT, what's the word I'm looking for? Is worth selling PT, warrants PT, then don't sell him PT, right? Like and he might not buy it, right? Again, but if you're just like, yo, this is going to take a lot more than the time I have available, we need to set up some time for this. Like, here's what that costs, right? I think that's up to the owner.
I think also a good drill for you, Michael, depending on your relationship with this person, is go up to them next time you see them and say, hey, we got you to string kipping pull-ups, and you got your first chest to bar. How much would you have paid for that? I think that's totally acceptable. Like, depending on your relationship with them, but like, hey, would you have paid me, $120 an hour or $60 for that 30? And all you need to do is get that validation once, maybe twice, and you see it. And also, if you went into it knowing you can do that, which now you do, obviously every person's a little different, would that have changed your mindset going into it?
The other thing to keep in mind is you're there to coach, right? And for the record, I'm like, I want you to make money. You should know your value. And in the same breath, I will tell you, it's really gross if you try to charge people for every single thing that you do. Like, oh, you want 2 minutes of my time, bro? I'm gonna charge for that. I'm like, that now you're just gross, right? And there are entities out there that'll be like, nope, you never give anybody any information unless you charge for it. And I'm like, I don't agree with that. If you can solve their problem, solve their problem. If it needs extended amounts of your time and energy, and I'm like, now you can make the decision on whether to charge for it. But they're like, hey, can you help me with my kip and pull-ups? I'm like, oh, you're gonna need to set up a personal training session for that. I'm like, what if you could just fix it in 5 minutes? Just fix it. Right? Because the equity and trust that you would build there and the value they would provide for them is going to make them a long-term client. Right. But eventually, yes, you will know when people are kind of like overstuffing. You go, hey, can I borrow like 45 minutes of your time? And I'm like, that is a bit much. Right. We will probably need to set something up for that.
Well, and it is true. Like, where do you draw the line, right? Like, is it 5 minutes? Is it 10? Is it an hour? Right. So knowing those for you is important.
Yeah. And again, on the front end, and this is like a weird double-edged sword. As you get better at coaching, well, at least you should, as you get better at coaching, there will be less and less need for these things. Meaning like you would have fixed them in that setting very quickly within reason, depending on what we're talking about. Which is like, I don't need to do 30 minutes for kipping pull-ups. I can fix that literally in the specific warm-up. Like kip your feet together, widen up your hands and press down a little bit harder. And they're like, oh, I did it. And I'm like, yeah, just quick, done. So it depends, right? And that's kind of a sliding scale and be like, well, then how do I sell personal training? I'm like, well, there's other ways, right? Meaning there are other people that are in the market for personal training. And more often than not, they're not typically people that are in the market for group training. I understand those are two different clients most of the time. Not always. Most of the time, they are two totally different clients. And typically, if you have one personal training client, they can refer you to other personal training clients. These are people that have no desire to be in a group setting, right? They want different things. They value different things, and it's fine. But you're typically not going to convert a ton, at least on a regular basis, unless you're selling hybrid memberships, which has a whole separate set of problems involved with it.
All right,
it's not bad. There's problems associated with it.
I got one last thing. Whenever you asked us earlier, like what are some of the things that have value that aren't like actual items, I thought about it a little bit later. I haven't ever seen this before, so I just want to run it by you and get your thoughts and opinions on it, right? Because I know a little bit about what you think. But let's say you have 3 gym memberships, bronze, silver, gold. Okay. The highest one also comes with 3 free drop-ins for anybody you want to bring to your facility. Could that be a value
meaning okay, so you're paying top tier, but that means that you can bring in 3 people a month.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Is that a value add? Is it a detractor? Is that like something you were looking for earlier when you asked us that question?
I think that's a huge value add.
It could be a value add, but here's I'll play devil's advocate. When I say value add, it has to be for both parties.
Fair.
And that may not be a value add for the business. And how do we know? Did it work? Do they consistently bring in 3 people to do that? At which point I'm arguing like they probably would have just done it for free. Just the value add for them is a good referral program and offer that would actually financially reward them. Be like, you can bring them in anyway. You don't have to pay me more money to bring in 3 people, right? Just bring in 3 people and I'll give you a referral offer for all 3 of them every single time. So I don't think it's a bad idea, right? I think it would be a tough sell based just logically. They're like, so I have to pay this so I can bring in 3 other people, but then what do I get for it? Now becomes the question.
Right. So it's like I pay for free drop-ins or I get a referral bonus. Either way, like
here's what I would do. I would tell you, if you wanted to flip that, you wanted to pay that higher one. I'm like, I would flip that the other direction, which is like, you can pay that higher one and I will pay 3 drop-ins for you at another gym when you travel.
Ooh. See, like interesting
topsy-turvy.
was good.
I think it's a it's a cool idea to bring other people into the gym to help them
So that
like lower the barrier to bring some of their friends in, right?
right. And I love that idea, but you don't have to charge people more for that. You can just tee up other mechanisms like bring a friend week, or just let people know, like, if you want to bring a friend in, just let me know. We'll determine what is the best day for them to come in,
Cool.
so that we can to make sure they have a great experience. If you're okay with that, right? That depends on what your intake process looks like, right? So you'd have to reverse engineer that all the way back to the beginning.
All right. Well, that's all the questions that we had in the chat. I don't think anybody else dropped anything in there. That's all the ones that I had on our show notes from earlier. You guys want to wrap this up with what is the main takeaways for building your front end offer? Like what are the essential pieces that you remember?
Yeah, I think if we were to just bullet point it, the first is like determine how you're going to intake people. Okay, so like what is that actual like step-by-step process? They do this, then I do this, and they do this, and they just keep going down until like boom, they join. Then from there, I need to think about like I need to create my kind of value stack, which is like what do they get? Because that's going to tee up when I price it and pitch it. Okay. And now that I've got all that ready, I'm like, now I need to build it so that I can sell it. And then I need to practice it, right? So that you don't stumble over your words and you can figure out like, hey, when exactly should I say this part about the cost? And if they have a question, how should I lead them into, that answer, right? Or whatever that might be. But that's the mechanics of it. And all along the way, you should be asking yourself, like, does this make sense? Right? The easy sale is the one that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, it gets real convoluted because people are not dumb. And if you roll out something that doesn't make sense, like they're probably aware and they probably don't feel great about it. Now they might pay you for it, but eventually that will become a problem, right? So when you're building your front end offer, ask yourself, like, does this make sense? Like, can I logically come to the conclusion that this would be a fair price for this, for both parties, fair for them and fair for me?